Now you can see Donnie Allison is going inside Cale Yarborough. Cale Yarborough undoubtedly in trouble. Then Neil Bonnet and you've got Dale Earnhardt there, got sideways. The back end of the car got loose. He's got it sideways again. He's trying to regain control.
And Earnhardt loses it, goes on the grass, comes back, and Elliott goes inside. And Earnhardt still got the lead. Incredible.
And for the first time in his NASCAR Winston Cup career, Dale Earnhardt wins on a road course. He comes off of corner number 4, looking for the checkered flag. The fans are on their feet. He waves to them. The checkered flag is out, and Earnhardt wins the Southern 500.
Dale Earnhardt has won the second Brickyard 400.
20 years of trying, 20 years of frustration. Dale Earnhardt will come with a caution flag to win the Daytona 500. Finally.
Coming to the white flag, there's a leader change, and Labonte takes the lead.
And meanwhile, Mickey Rudd trying to...
Oh, and Earnhardt spins him out.
Didn't mean to really turn around, meant to rattle his cage, though.
Here comes Earnhardt.
How did he get through all these cars? I don't understand how he did that.
The Intimidator is straight and beat on the right side. But he will not be denied. The no ball 5 contender, Mr. Second Place, Dale Earnhardt comes down and will take his 10th career victory at Talladega.
I want to be thoroughly used up when I die. Life is no brief candle to me. It's a sort of splendid torch, which I get a hold of for the moment. And I want it to burn as brightly as possible before handing it on to future generations. Good evening, everyone. I'm Bob Jenkins. The words you just heard were penned by George Bernard Shaw. The shining light that was the life of Dale Earnhardt burned brilliantly. On Sunday, less than a mile from the checkered flag of the Daytona 500, that light was extinguished in a racing accident that has stunned us all. The void that has opened is deep. We hope in the next hour that our remembrances of Dale will bring some comfort to the millions of fans that are hurting along with us. The time to address the hows and whys of the accident will come, but not for now. We need to share in a celebration of the life of this American icon. Joining me here in our studio is Dr. Jerry Punch, a close friend to the Earnhardts and certainly a man who knew Dale as well as anyone. Jerry.
Bob, you know, Dale Earnhardt's celebrity extended far beyond the realm of stock car racing. As you said, he was an American icon. He was a hero's hero. And for those of you not familiar with motorsports or not even a casual motorsports fan, look at it this way. Dale Earnhardt was Elvis and all 4 Beatles. And tonight, millions of people all over this country are shocked and stunned because he is gone. Emails, thousands by the thousand, have been sent into ESPN and every media outlet around the country trying to remember the fallen hero. And over the past couple of nights, hundreds have filed by the Earnhardt estate, leaving flowers and pictures and their special remembrances. The florists around Kannapolis, North Carolina and Mooresville, North Carolina have said their phones have been ringing off the hook, and every phone call begins the same way, sobbing and tears, and finally they gather it up enough to be able to place an order. Today, when I got on an airplane to come here to do this special tonight, I looked around the airport and there sat people with Earnhardt jackets and hats and shirts. And they all did the same thing. They all leaned forward and had their face buried in their hands. Tonight, a nation grieves for a fallen hero.
Well, from motorsports capitals like Indianapolis, Charlotte, and Daytona to rural communities across America, fans have spent the past 2 days pouring out their emotion with personal tributes. The impact of Dale Earnhardt's death has touched everyone in the racing community. associated with Dale Earnhardt's passing is beyond immediate comprehension. The fact that his fatal accident would occur at Daytona in a race that he loved dearly is difficult to fathom. Let's reflect on this same week 3 years ago. Dale's 19-year winless relationship with the sport's biggest race had reached a boiling point heading into the 1998 Daytona 500, which also kicked off NASCAR's 50th anniversary season.
In the 50 years of NASCAR, what would you want to accomplish? Well, if you was involved all that time. Well, sure, you'd want to win a championship, but you'd want to win the Daytona 500 too, wouldn't you? We've never won it, so we've been so close and so competitive there with Richard and the team, and it's just been an awesome kind of race to work toward and be a part of and be in, and to not ever win it is really, you know, it's a tough deal, but still, it's not the only deal in my life. Like I said, I mean, there's hurdles you get over, and there's some you don't, and if you don't, you just keep trying till you do.
20 years of trying, 20 years of frustration. Dale Earnhardt will come to the caution flag to win the Daytona 500. Finally, the most anticipated moment in racing.
For Dale Earnhardt, his trip down pit road following his Daytona 500 win was sweet indeed. We can only imagine what flood of emotion filled his eyes of steel as the racing world paid tribute. After 19 bitter trips to Daytona for NASCAR's biggest race, this trip to victory lane had been paved with past heartbreak. It wasn't as if he didn't already know the way. He had visited stock car racing's most sacred spot, Daytona Speedway's victory lane, 30 times before. But those trips followed triumphs in events like the Bud Shootout, the International Race of Champions, or in the Busch Series. He was a permanent fixture for the Gatorade Twin 125 qualifying races, winning a remarkable 10 times in a row. He had even won in the summer heat, capturing 2 Pepsi 400s. But everyone knows, most of all Dale, that is not winning the Daytona 500. From his first Daytona 500 start in 1979, he always knew his way to the front. Leading laps in the Daytona 500 came natural to Dale, as did late race heartbreaks.
Earnhardt's car blows up. Earnhardt blows a tire in turn number 3. Derek Culp down to the inside. Terry Labonte second as Dale Earnhardt slides back into the 4th position. Off the corner, it's Derek Culp.
But here comes Terry Labonte. He looks to the inside. Derek Culp covers the spot. Earnhardt's not a factor here. Culp hold off the challenge of Labonte. Derek Culp wins the Daytona 500 in a remarkable upset here at the World Center of Racing.
Year after year, he would fall short and always left to answer the tough questions.
It's the Daytona 500. I ain't supposed to win the damn thing, right?
Tenacity isn't a strong enough word to describe his will to win the Daytona 500, as he gave evidence to, even in the most extreme circumstances. When the victory finally came following another dominating performance, the emotions were as genuine as any ever witnessed in sport. The Intimidator had conquered his greatest rival and given his fans a triumph that will never be forgotten. That last shot there with the fans was taken long after the checkered flag drop. There's always the obligatory interview in the media center, and Dale showed up a lot of emotion there and really made the most of his win.
He did, Bob. You know, the fans loved Dale Earnhardt, and Dale Earnhardt loved the fans. And you know, this day, when he finally won the Daytona 500, didn't end until the wee hours of the morning. You see him, I mean, cherishing. He throws that monkey off his back up in the press box and enjoying the moment. I mean, here's a man that's been coming to Daytona for 2 decades. And how about the hug there from Bill Francis? And no one, although he loves all his drivers, I mean, he obviously is a big, big fan of Dale Earnhardt. You know, 3 hours or so after all this has taken place, we were there doing Sports Center in a studio along Pit Road. And it was pitch dark, and you see Earnhardt riding on the back of that motorcycle. Well, 3 hours later, as the hot dog wrappers are blowing around and just the seagulls are there, we hear a lone motorcycle pull up to our studio in the wee hours of the morning. And it's Earnhardt still on the back of that motorcycle with his hat in one hand and a glass of champagne on the other, saying, "I won the Daytona 500. I mean, still savoring what he waited 20 years for.
And then, Doc, there's a story about the good luck charm that Dale carried in the car.
Earlier in that week, he was very upset that his race car wasn't running very well. After practice, he was taken over to meet, some Make-A-Wish children. And a young child leaned over, and Dale gave this child a hug, and the child just lit up. And Dale said, how can I be so upset when this child is so excited and has been dealt this set of cards? Well, after that meeting, the child gave Dale Earnhardt that penny, which he ran over and put some little 3M glue on and put in his car. And that penny, he said, was my lucky penny that allowed him to win the Daytona 500.
I think that's what it is.
It just wears you out having that 3-car in the rearview mirror. He's everywhere. Where will this guy turn up next?
Ready, one. Take one. Roll A. Up on A. Ready to fade to black and roll X. Happy 15th anniversary, ESPN. Roll X.
He could do it all on the racetrack and in the TV truck.
Absolutely. Racetrack, victory lane, television truck. I mean, on a Sunday afternoon, Earnhardt had that magic. He could disappear and reappear just about anywhere.
Well, when the checkered flag fell on last October's Talladega race, Dale Earnhardt tasted what would be his final NASCAR Winston Cup victory. Many fans and journalists not only think it was the greatest race ever, but the finest display of Earnhardt's God-given talent. From the broadcast booth, our Benny Parsons watched in awe.
You know, Bob, if there was ever any doubt that Dale Earnhardt was the master of the super speedways, Daytona and Talladega, if there's ever any doubt, he put it all to rest back in October at Talladega. Unbelievable. 49 lead changes. Race cars all over the racetrack, 3 and 4 wide. With about 4 or 5 laps to go, I looked on the monitor in the booth and saw Earnhardt was back in 18th spot. And I discounted him. I said, Earnhardt will not win today. A couple of laps later, I looked up and he was running 4th. And I think I said on there, where did he come from? I still have no idea how Earnhardt was able to do that. But I know the fans went nuts. You could hear the fans screaming above the race cars, screaming Dale Earnhardt on the victory. And he didn't disappoint him. He came on the victory lane. And he was racing for a fan that day. Remember the Winston No Bull 5? Richard Sturz was there. Earnhardt was representing him. And in victory lane, when Richard came up and got on the race car with Dale Earnhardt, I think that Earnhardt was as happy for him as he was himself winning the race at Talladega. He loved doing something for the fans. And Richard Sturz was on my radio show the next night on Monday night with Dale Earnhardt, and he said he was going to come down and buy a truck from Earnhardt's Chevrolet dealership in Newton, North Carolina. Earnhardt said, Richard, you better save that money. You might need it one of these days. Invest that money. Earnhardt still trying to help that fan the next day. Oh, man, what a race that Talladega race was, Bob.
It was an incredible race, and that victory really kept him in the thick of the points battle that year.
Bob, I was so tickled that you were preoccupied with an Indy Racing League event that day, and I got to call that race. I hate you weren't there with us, but I got to call that race, and that's a memory I will have for a long, long time. I mean, race fans have long known that until the checkered flag waves, Earnhardt is not out of it. And as Benny said, you know, where did he come from? When that race was over, Benny and I were on our way to the airport. And I remember we were talking about, you know, what we saw just a few minutes ago was not humanly possible. Then I stopped and said, you know, this guy's not human. He's Earnhardt.
But he hated restrictor plate races, and Talladega was one of his strongest racetracks.
It was, and you know, I think that, you know, Earnhardt's the kind of guy who said, tie me in the car, let's go 235 miles an hour, put the pedal to the floor, and if it's too fast for you, go sit in the stands and watch it. I mean, that's the kind of guy Earnhardt was. But he was so good on those racetracks because he was so focused and fearless.
Those loving images of Dale, Teresa, and Dale Earnhardt Jr. are the last ones together as a family, and it's the way we choose to remember. For his final thoughts, we return to Benny Parsons in Daytona Beach.
Bob, when I was driving a race car, I told all my close friends, if something happens to me when I'm in that race car, please don't feel sorry for me, because I know what I'm doing, and I know that I could pay the supreme price, but it's what I want to do, be inside that race car. And I think that's exactly what Dale Earnhardt wanted to do, was be inside that race car, trying to beat those other guys. And look where racing took him, to sitting beside presidents and kings and staying in the presidential suite of the Waldorf Astoria, one of the most famous hotels in the country, only because of racing. But, you know, I think that If Earnhardt had known how much that we're going to miss him, I'm talking about us, the media, his friends, the other drivers, and especially the fans, maybe Earnhardt would have sat down in a chair beside of me and talked to you and said, okay, don't worry about it, folks. Don't worry about it, because I'd rather live 49 years the way I have than 100 years of mediocrity.
Well said, BP, and a very good thought also. Jerry, I know this is going to be really tough for you, but you had a very special place in your heart for Dale Earnhardt.
You know, Bob, they can take away our champion, but they can't take away our memories. In 1994, at the NASCAR Awards banquet, when it was all over, I had a chance to stand on that stage between two 7-time Winston Cup champions, the King Richard Petty and the Intimidator Dale Earnhardt. Now, Richard Petty won 200 races, and he was one of my heroes. But in my opinion, in the modern era of motorsports, no one was better than Dale Earnhardt. He was the best of the best. And I know what you're saying out there. They're saying, Doc, tell them how we feel. You know, he left us doing what he loved, but it doesn't make it any easier. We're going to miss him. He was a champion. He was the Intimidator, and he was the best.
Jerry, thank you very much. Well, prior to the banquet honoring Dale Earnhardt as a 7-time NASCAR Winston Cup champion, we offered him the opportunity to write and produce his own tribute for this special occasion. It was a challenge he accepted with his usual competitive spirit. He opened up and talked about his past in a way that few had heard before. He brought out personal family photos and dug deep to reveal the pride that he had in his roots. He wanted to remember everyone that had made him a champion. All he wanted to do was to say thanks.
It's great being from Kannapolis, North Carolina. It's the kind of hometown that everybody wishes they had. I'm proud to say that I was born to Ralph and Martha Earnhardt as the third of 5 children. I think you all know my daddy as a racer, and because of him, it's all I ever wanted to be. My sisters Kay and Kathy and brothers Randy and Danny, they've all meant a lot to me through the years with the support they've always given. My mom is my biggest fan, and I'm glad she's had the chance to share a lot of the good times with me. I want to say thanks to all my family, friends, and business associates in the Carolinas and all over that have supported me in the good times and bad. People you may not have heard of that have really helped me in the past, people like Jimmy Otten at Piedmont Bank, who helped me with 90-day notes to keep me racing when my pockets were empty. Growing up, I thought we were rich because I was always around race cars. I got a lot of hands-on experience with my dad, how to work on cars and what it took to win. I love going to the races with my dad or working with racers like Haywood Plyler. I think I was Haywood's first crew chief. I would do the windshield and roll tires around the car, whatever. The early years were pretty exciting, pretty scary, and pretty unbelievable at times. David and Ray Oliver owned the first car I drove. A little bit embarrassed that it was pink, but I had a good time driving it. Next, I drove an old 56 Ford that James Miller owned. During the winter, James and the guys built a 63 Falcon. Can you believe we won the first race we ran it? My next car owners was Tommy and James and Frank Russell from Concord, North Carolina. I know we won over 26 races the first year, and I think 29 or more the second year. All my racing back then was on dirt. While I was still running the 6-cylinder class, Pete Hamilton, Tex Powell, Larry Rathgaff, and the Petties gave me a chance to test the Chrysler kit car at Concord, North Carolina. Boy, you talking about an experience getting out of a 6-cylinder into a V8. Now, that was some fun. After my dad passed away, I was fortunate to have a good friend, Gray London, who bought me my first asphalt car. It was a 65 Chevelle from Harry Gant. 1974 was my first asphalt race, and I've got to thank Harry Gant and Tommy Houston for teaching me the difference between dirt and asphalt. That was some experience. Bobby Isaac also meant a lot to me in those days. He gave me some great advice. I got to thank Ned Jarrett, who was the promoter at Hickory Speedway in those days. He helped me with finding sponsors. One of my first sponsors was Doc Cycle Center of Kannapolis, which was owned by Marshall Brooks, a good friend of mine. And boy, was he a lot of fun. My first super speedway race came when Richard Howard of Charlotte Motor Speedway helped me get a ride with Neil Castles in the Sportsman 300 in October of 1974. I kept racing the short tracks in the Sportsman division with the help of friends like Gary Hargan. In May of 1975, I made my first Winston Cup start. I drove an Edna Grease Dodge in the World 600. Boy, what an experience. About that same time, Robert G. built a Camaro that we raced at Concord and some other short tracks around there. Boy, it was awesome. We won a lot of races with that car. I'm grateful to Robert for all the help he gave me, from driving his dirt car to winning Daytona, Charlotte, Rockingham, and his sportsman cars. Robert really meant a lot to me, as well as a lot of other people in racing. When times were tight, there was a lot of people that believed in me. I've got to thank people like Dick Hutchison and Eddie Pagan for, well, letting me charge too much on my parts bill that I finally paid off. In May of 1976, I drove a car owned by Walter Ballard at Charlotte for my second Winston Cup start. Then in November, I drove Johnny Ray's car at Atlanta with Buddy Parrott as my crew chief. Boy, I got in a heck of a wreck over in turn 3 with Dick Brooks and demolished the car. I got a break in 1978 thanks to Humpy Wheeler, who put me in a Will Cronkite car at Charlotte, the World 600. I ran 3 more races with Will before I met Rod Osterlund. Rod let me drive his sportsman car at Charlotte and his Winston Cup car at Atlanta, where I finished 4th in just my 9th Winston Cup start. With the support of Rod Osterlund and the whole Osterlund team, I was on my way. 1979 was a great year. I won my first Winston Cup race at Bristol, and I won the Rookie of the Year. We had a good crew with guys like Doug Richard, Jake Elder, Dave D'Ambrosio, and Lou LaRosa. It's hard to believe the next year we won our first Winston Cup championship. In 1981, I made the decision to change rides, and Junior Johnson was instrumental in helping me team up with Richard Childers. Richard and I both appreciate Junior's advice. Then in 1982, I had the opportunity to drive for a great man, Bud Moore. We won some races, but more importantly, Bud helped me settle down. I'll always be grateful to Bud. So many people helped me in my career for no other reason except they loved to race, and they believed in me. I really appreciate people like Mike Herman, Ronnie Sellers, Gene Dees, Mike Watkins, Woody Chavis, Robert G. Jr., Rick Brigman, Rick Boss, Don Drake, Mark McCullen, my brothers Randy and Danny, Tony Urey, and Donnie Reeves. Of course, I've got to remember my old buddy Joe Whitlock. He taught me there's more to this sport than just driving a race car, and he kept me really amused with great stories about my dad. In 1984, I went back to drive for Richard Childers. He had put together a strong team that has a lot of the same people that make up the team today. The Childers team won 4 pit crew championships in a row from 1985 through 88 with guys like Kurt Shammerdine, Will Lynn, David Smith, and Chocolate Myers. Together, we won NASCAR Winston Cup championships in 86 and 87 in Chevrolet Monte Carlos for Wrangler. Jim Goodrich came along in 1988, and with their support, we've won 4 Winston Cup championships in the past 5 years in our Chevy Luminas. Through it all, Richard Childers has given me the best crew, the best cars, and the best advice and friendship that any man could ask for. Throughout my career, I've made some great racing friends, men I've learned from, men like David Pearson, Kel Yarborough, Benny Parsons, Donnie and Bobby Allison, Richard Petty, and Dave Marcus. Of course, we've had some sad times. We've lost some great guys that I love to race with. Guys like Tim Richmond, Davey Allison, and Alan Kowicki. They were more than competitors to me. They were our friends. Then there's all the other characters I'm still racing with. Rusty, Ernie, Mark, Schrader, Kyle, Jeff Gordon, and all the other guys out there. You are the ones who make NASCAR Winston Cup racing so competitive. There are personal friends and fans who have encouraged me more than they'll ever know. I've got to make a special point to thank Bill France and the whole NASCAR family. They do more than most will ever know to give us a great organization to race with. Thanks to the folks at R.J. Reynolds, T. Wayne, Jim Johnson, and all the others through the years that have made this sport grow in a way that just is unbelievable. I've walked away with a lot of their checks, and I really appreciate Winston. Thanks also to the promoters, the press people, just everyone involved who has helped me become a 7-time champion. I know where the sport has come from, and I know without everybody's help, I wouldn't be where I am tonight. I'm fortunate to have a great family. My children, Carrie, Kelly, Dale Jr., and Taylor Nicole have given me a lot of joy. I want all of them to know how proud I am of them. I don't know how far we could have gotten without Teresa. She's been just a great wife and a friend to me. Of all the good things that have happened to me, Teresa has been the best. I couldn't close without a thanks to Neil. A man couldn't ask for a better friend. He was with me and the whole team this past season. He was in our thoughts and in our hearts. Nobody will ever know how much Neil Bonnet has helped me in my life. I just wish I had the chance to thank him.
With the help of the good Lord and a lot of good people, I made the journey from the old dirt tracks around Kannapolis to the greatest super speedways in the world. And tonight, while you may be honoring me as your 7-time champion, I'm here to say it's me, Dale Earnhardt, who honors you and thanks you.
We will always remember Dale Earnhardt as a champion in every facet of life. His passing has brought much sorrow, but his life brought millions great joy. Godspeed, Dale Earnhardt.
It's my life. It's better left to chance. I could have missed the pain, but I'd have had to miss the